On the 22nd floor of a glass skyscraper in the city center, life was in full swing. People in expensive suits discussed mergers, signed contracts, and did not notice those who appeared at night, when the building was empty and the lights dimmed to on duty lighting. Emma Colt, a dim eyed girl in a faded cleaning uniform, entered the office unnoticed. Every night, at 2200 hours exactly, with a bucket, a mop, and a notebook that no one has ever seen inside. She was considered quiet, modest, a little strange. No one guessed that it was she who, accidentally overhearing a conversation in the conference room and finding the documents left on the floor, was the first to realize that the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. She's been a shadow in this building for years. They didn't notice her, they didn't greet her, they forgot her name. But Emma had a special feature, a phenomenal memory and analytical mind. She had no diplomas or references, but she knew more than some directors. While she was dusting the shelves with reports, she read every paper, every spreadsheet. And one day, everything came together in her head like a jigsaw puzzle. The company was losing millions due to internal sabotage. The financial director conducted double bookkeeping, draining funds offshore. No one suspected, not even the owner, Mr. Durham, who was considered a business genius. Emma quietly collected all the evidence: statements, fake signatures, transfer schemes. She didn't know what to do. It was dangerous to go to the police. Then she made up her mind. She placed the printouts directly on Durham's desk but did not sign them. 2 days later, the company seemed to shake. Internal investigations began, and auditors flew in like flies. The finance director was accused, fired in disgrace, saving his reputation. Mr. Durham announced at the general meeting, "An anonymous person saved us from collapse. We will find him, and we will reward him as he deserves." And only Emma, washing the glass behind the column, knew who he was talking about. She didn't want fame, but she decided anyway. In the evening, she left a letter of confession, without a last name, just a first name: Emma. The promise of a reward was repeated in every department. She was almost happy, but she didn't come on shift the next day. No one knew where she was. The phone is unavailable. The rented room is empty. The office cameras record her leaving work, and that's it. It was as if she had disappeared. The rumors started. Someone whispered that the head of the company got rid of her himself. After all, if the cleaner knew about the fraud, maybe she knew more. Durham itself looked grimmer than usual. The press was making a fuss. The investigation was stalling on the spot. A month has passed, then the second one. Third, Emma Colt became a ghost. Almost everyone has forgotten about her. Almost. It's been 3 months since Emma disappeared. Her name was no longer heard in the corridors. Everything was cleared from her desk, except for one piece of paper, forgotten under the keyboard, with a hand drawn crane in the corner. People were whispering and guessing, but no one else was talking about her out loud. It was as if a shadow had fallen on everyone who knew Emma. The company's CEO, Gregory Maynard, was at the center of the rumors. His face was no longer published in business magazines. He did not give interviews. And although nothing was officially brought against him, everyone knew that Emma's disappearance coincided with an internal scandal involving financial fraud. Only one department was in the black that quarter, and that was the cleaning department, thanks to Emma, who discovered a budget leak of more than $500,000. Gregory then vowed to personally thank her publicly. The next day, Emma did not come to work. The phone was silent. The surveillance cameras in the building did not record her leaving the territory. The police shrugged their shoulders. 3 months, and then one gray Tuesday, when no one even wanted to drink their morning coffee, there was a sound that almost no one expected anymore. A signal from the turnstile on the ground floor. Emma came in, still wearing the gray cleaning lady's uniform. Her hair is braided into a tight braid. Only the eyes were different, quieter, deeper. Not the eyes of a man who just didn't show up for work. "Good morning," she said to the security guard on duty. "Emma?" The man who scanned the badge dropped the tablet. Are you are you back?" Emma just nodded. "It's like I just went out on a break and forgot to come back." She walked down the hallway like a ghost from the past and headed for the elevator. "There is a finance department on the 5th floor. That's where it all started." "Hi, Tom," she said, entering the office of the department head. "Do you remember me?" Tom stood up so abruptly that he knocked over his coffee mug. "Damn it, Emma, where have you been? Everyone was thinking that I'm dead." She smiled coldly. "I was told that you cried at the meeting. A real actor." Tom turned pale. We we didn't know what had happened. We were worried. You were worried about yourself, Tom, because I knew that if I came back, you'd have to explain where the money disappeared to. The ones that you redirected through a chain of fictitious contracts. He took a step back, but Emma took out a folder and threw it on the table. "It's all here. Documents, signatures, screenshots of the conversations, and a flash drive with recordings. You didn't know that I was copying your internal chats, did you? Are you are you blackmailing me?" Minus no. I'm giving you a choice. You confess voluntarily, or you'll be dragged out of this office with handcuffs on your hands. Tonight. Tom sat down. Sweat was running down his temples. You're just a cleaner." Emma leaned closer. "No, Tom, I was a cleaner. And now I'm the one who knows everything about each of you." And she turned around and walked out, leaving him alone with papers that were worse than any accusation. That was just the beginning. An hour later, the HR department received a letter with copies of documents confirming that Gregory Maynard knew about the leaks and covered them up in order to maintain the outward appearance of the company's stability. 2 days later, a copy of the same letter appeared in the news. And 5 minutes later, Gregory left the main office amid camera flashes and protests from employees who had recently been afraid to even say that something was wrong. Emma was sitting in the meeting room, quietly looking out the window. Next to her was the note with the crane. "Why did you come back?" one of the managers asked, looking inside. "You could have just disappeared to start a new life." "Because I'm not running," she said. "I'm going back to make a point, and none of them will forget who I am." That evening, the company's office resembled a beehive into which smoke was launched. Panic, whispers, running between offices. Emma walked calmly through the empty corridors like a conductor of destruction, enjoying the silence before the storm she had caused. There was a bronze plaque on the desk in the CEO's reception area, Gregory Maynard. There was no one behind her now. The office was sealed. Inside, there was an overturned leather chair, an unfinished glass, and an emptiness. The symbol of power has fallen. Emma walked past without holding her gaze. Today, her goal wasn't the office, but the people. Those who silently covered up the injustice. Those who received awards for their silence. Those who laughed at her in the dining room, forgetting that the cleaner is also a human being. The first was Lauren, the head of the HR department, a woman with a cold voice who ignored employee complaints for months. Emma entered without knocking. Lauren looked up and saw her and paled for a moment. Emma, what are you? You didn't expect me to come back, did you? Emma interrupted her with a slight smile. I brought you something. She put a folder on the table with the names of the dismissed employees, those who were removed for fictitious reasons to make room for their own. I found the notes, their refusals, their letters, all your signatures. Letters with directives from Maynard, which you followed without question. Now, all these people will have the opportunity to file a class action lawsuit. That that wasn't my decision? Lauren's voice was shaking. I was just following orders. You know what's interesting, Lauren? Emma bent down. When you fired that pregnant woman under the pretext of optimization, you didn't even blink. But now you're shaking. Lauren tried to say something, but Emma had already left. The next target was Mark, a financial auditor who was called the Invisible Man with Teeth. He knew about all the machinations but preferred not to interfere. His office was illuminated by the soft glow of the monitor. He was looking through papers, but when he noticed Emma, he flinched. You're... He began. Yes, that's the one. Alive, she interrupted, and very, very attentive. She came closer, took out another flash drive from her bag, and inserted it into his computer. There are recordings from the cameras, where you personally approve deals with front contractors. Silence is expensive, Mark. I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't steal. But he didn't stop me either. And now you're going to be next in the news. Mark turned pale and tried to pull out the flash drive, but Emma had already copied everything to the cloud. You don't understand, she whispered. I don't play by the rules. This is not a trial. This is retribution. A week has passed. The company has become a raging battlefield. The internal investigation turned into a public scandal. Stock market stocks collapsed. The Department of Justice has requested the documents. Emma's name was in every headline. The cleaner exposed millions of frauds. But while the journalists were hunting for a sensation, Emma moved on. Quietly, methodically. She knew who would be next. It was Sandra, the PR director. The woman who leaked false stories to the press and erased the truth. It was she who sent out a press release about Emma's voluntary dismissal on the day of her disappearance. She knew. Emma waited until evening. When the office was empty, she walked over to Sandra's car in the underground parking lot. Panic suits you, she said, emerging from the shadows. Sandra squealed and pressed herself against the door. What do you want? Just confessions, Emma said, holding out the recorder, and I'll disappear forever. Or? Sandra stared at her, trembling. I didn't know what had been done to you. They just told me to sign it. I thought you were gone. You lied, Emma said softly. She lied and covered up for those who ruined their lives. It's time to tell the truth. Sandra spoke up. Long. Through tears, fright, and guilt. The next day, the recording appeared on the morning news, along with a series of videos from an anonymous source. Every name, every action is recorded, documented. Everyone knew it wasn't journalists, it was someone who knew how the company worked from the inside, who washed her floors but read her correspondence, who brought coffee but listened to the meetings. Emma has become a symbol of revenge. Not violent, not blind. Cold, reasonable, elusive. Someone was trying to contact her, the media, former colleagues, even investors. But Emma was gone, again, leaving only one file on the company's server. It was simply called Emma the Final, and there was only one message in it. You thought I was just a cleaner, but now you know. Every brush remembers more than your cameras. You have built an empire on lies. I just dusted it off. To part 4, where Emma disappeared. When the elevator doors closed behind her that night, 3 months ago, Emma wasn't just leaving the building. She was vanishing from her old life. No cameras, no farewells, only a prepaid phone, a single duffel bag, and a plan she'd been preparing long before anyone realized she wasn't just a cleaner. Emma boarded a late night bus heading north, away from the city lights, away from the polished glass towers where she'd been invisible. She didn't look back. She'd memorized every step, every contact, every backup folder stored in encrypted USBs sewn into the lining of her coat. Her destination, the small coastal town of Greyhaven. Population, 3,200. A forgotten dot on the map with a shuttered shipyard and a bed and breakfast owned by her late grandmother's best friend. Emma? My God, you look like a ghost, said Agnes, opening the creaky wooden door of the old house, her eyes filled with warmth and concern. I need to stay here. I won't be in the way. I just need quiet and time. Agnes didn't ask questions. She simply nodded and showed her to the attic room, the one with the sea breeze and the slanted ceiling Emma remembered from summers long gone. And so began Emma's disappearance. During the day, she walked along the cliffs, watched the waves crash, let the cold wind slap the memories from her mind. At night, she worked, not with mops or vacuums, but with data. She set up her laptop with secure access, installed tracking software she had learned about from a friend years ago. Emma wasn't just a janitor. She'd audited systems when the IT guy didn't want to. She'd read reports while cleaning executives' offices, and she'd seen enough to know where the skeletons were buried. Each night, she connected to the company's cloud via backdoor credentials she'd quietly collected. She watched, listened, gathered proof, downloaded documents, intercepted emails, even screen recordings. She mapped out the web of deceit: offshore accounts, shell companies, internal payouts masked as consulting fees. And she made a list: Lauren, Mark, Sandra, even Gregor. But she didn't stop there. She dug into HR systems, into anonymous complaints that were buried. She found people, former employees who'd been wronged, silenced, pushed out. She called them one by one. Hi, this is Emma. You don't know me, but I know what happened to you. I was there, and I'm going to fix it. Some hung up, others cried. A few swore revenge, but most listened. Emma organized them into a secure chat, a digital survivors circle. They shared files, stories, signatures. The web grew. 3 weeks in, Emma had a digital dossier 400 pages long. She could have gone to the police, but she didn't trust them. She could have gone to the press, but headlines fade. Emma wanted something more permanent, something undeniable. So she built it herself. A website, password protected, ticking like a time bomb, a timer counting down from 90 days. And then she wrote the rules. If anything happens to me, this will go public. She mailed 2 backup drives to distant safe houses, friends she hadn't spoken to in years but could still trust. She had one goal: wait, plan, strike, and she did. When she returned to the city 3 months later, no one knew. She walked past her old office, dressed in a sharp black coat, hair cut short. No one recognized her, but they would. The storm had begun. Part 5. The Final Blow. 5,000 characters, no spaces. English text. Emma's return wasn't loud. It wasn't announced. It didn't need to be. She'd learned the art of being invisible, and now she was using it as a weapon. The city skyline loomed ahead as she stepped off the train, a black satchel over her shoulder, confidence in her posture, vengeance in her veins. She didn't go home. She didn't go to friends. She went straight to the place it all started, Crafton and Myers Corporation, the very building where she used to mop floors at midnight and overhear secrets the suits never thought a janitor would understand. Except she wasn't here to clean. She was here to dismantle. Her first stop, a rented co-working space across the street from the tower. With her laptop connected to a high-speed network and her dossier laid out in a private encrypted cloud, Emma activated Phase 1. 9 a.m. Press alert sent. She scheduled an anonymous email blast to go out to every major news outlet in the country. The subject line was simple: Crafton and Myers, internal fraud, abuse, and the missing girl. Attached, a redacted version of her 400-page dossier, time-stamped, with evidence from 12 ex-employees, audit reports, whistleblower statements, and video clips captured by Emma over 2 years. 9:15 a.m., the drop. At exactly 9:15, while the executives were in their morning meeting, every screen in the conference room went black. Then a single phrase appeared. "You made me disappear. But I learned from the shadows. Now you'll be seen." The presentation that followed was pre-scheduled to auto-launch, sent through an internal admin account Emma still had access to. It played the financial funneling, the hidden bonuses, the offshore laundering. Every attendee froze. Lauren, the CEO, turned pale. Sandra, head of legal, clutched her chest. Gregor, smug and unshaken, barked orders into his phone. But Emma wasn't done. 10 a.m., HR data dump. A second wave hit the company servers. A file titled The Forgotten Voices appeared in every employee inbox. It contained dozens of sealed HR complaints, harassment claims, bullying, wage theft, most of which had been swept under the rug. Below it, a message from the janitor. "Your silence was purchased. Mine never was." 12 p.m. Market reaction. By noon, number Crafton Exposed was trending globally. Their stock price plummeted 37% in the first 2 hours. News anchors scrambled to cover the leak. Analysts tore through the documents live, and protesters began gathering outside the building. Meanwhile, Emma watched it all from across the street, sipping coffee like a tourist admiring chaos. And then came Phase 2. She picked up her phone and called a number she hadn't used in months. "Detective Lyle," answered a tired voice. "It's Emma Rivera," she said calmly. "I have a package you'll want to see. It includes signed testimonies, location data for the server room that was tampered with, and a personal statement about what happened to me the night I disappeared." There was silence on the other end. Then, "Where can we meet?" "Room 302, Carlisle Suites." "Bring a recorder." When Detective Lyle arrived, he found Emma sitting in front of a stack of boxes. "You're not just here to expose fraud," he said, eyes narrowed. Emma smiled faintly. "I'm here to bury the lie that nearly buried me." She told him everything. How she'd uncovered the money trail that led to top executives. How she was offered a bonus to stay quiet. How the night before she disappeared, she was drugged by someone she trusted and locked in a supply room. How she barely escaped, shaken and terrified, and knew she'd never be safe unless she vanished. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" he asked. "Because no one listens to the cleaning lady. They only listen when the building starts to burn." Lyle said nothing, just pressed record again and asked her to start from the beginning. The next morning, 3 warrants were issued. By the end of the week, Lauren, Sandra, and Gregor were all taken into custody for obstruction of justice, corporate fraud, and criminal conspiracy. But the story wasn't over. Emma had one last move to make. She walked through the building one final time, this time not as a ghost, but as a storm that had torn down an empire. Employees parted for her in the halls. Some whispered, others clapped. She found her old locker still untouched. Inside, a mop, a faded ID badge, and the sticky note she'd written years ago. "No one notices the quiet ones until they rise." She left it there and walked away. Part 6. Closure isn't always peace. Emma thought taking down the company would bring her peace. She thought exposing the truth would lift the weight that had been pressing on her chest for the last 3 months. But some things don't vanish just because you win. They only change shape. In the days following the arrests, her face was everywhere. News headlines, podcasts, late night segments. The janitor who brought down a corporate empire. People called her a hero. Survivors of other companies reached out to her. Offers came flooding in. Book deals, interviews, speaking engagements. But behind closed doors, Emma still flinched at every sudden noise. She still had nightmares of that storage room, the flickering light, the scent of bleach and betrayal. Detective Lyle had kept in touch. Not out of obligation, he believed in what she'd done. "Most people dream of justice," he once told her. "You built it with your own hands." But Emma didn't care for statues or spotlights. What she wanted was something simpler, a life that belonged only to her. So she declined every interview, every offer, every contract. Instead, she used the reward money offered by the whistleblower fund to do something unheard of. She bought the building where Crafton and Myers once operated. People thought she was crazy. Why go back to the place that tried to kill you? But Emma wasn't going back. She was taking over. She tore down the corporate decor, gutted the executive offices, and converted the top floor into a nonprofit workspace for whistleblowers, labor rights advocates, and those trying to hold the powerful accountable. She named it the Quiet Floor. Because in silence, the most powerful truths are often born. Former janitors, assistants, interns, all the people who once worked in shadows now had a place to be heard. And Emma, she didn't take a salary. She swept the floors herself every Friday just to remind herself where she came from. One evening, months after the dust had settled, Detective Lyle came to visit. He walked through the open floor workspace, past posters that read "Power Fears Truth" and "We Watch the Watchers." He found her in the break room, rinsing out mugs. "You know," he said, leaning against the door, "most people would have taken the money and run." Emma didn't look up. "That's the thing about fire," she said. "Once it's lit inside you, it's hard to pretend it isn't there." He smiled. "They still talk about you at the precinct. Some call you a modern-day Robin Hood." "I didn't steal from the rich," she replied. "I just returned what they buried." Lyle reached into his coat and handed her a folder. "Final case updates. All 3 pled guilty. They're serving time. You won." Emma took the folder but didn't open it. "I didn't win," she said. "I survived. That's different." Lyle nodded. "Well, sometimes survival is the victory." He left her there in the quiet hum of fluorescent light and freedom. Later that night, Emma walked through the now quiet building. The floor beneath her feet no longer echoed with the stomp of polished shoes or whispered lies behind glass doors. Now it carried the weight of something real. She entered her office, where one framed quote sat on her desk. It was the only thing she'd hung on the walls. Revenge may feed the fire, but justice rebuilds the home. She smiled softly, dimmed the lights, and locked the door behind her. She wasn't seeking revenge anymore. She had something better, control of her story, and she was just getting started.